Okay, welcome everybody to podcast number 232. Are you focusing on the hearts and minds of your people and giving them a voice? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome everybody. You're going to enjoy our podcast tonight. Paul Dunlop, I don't know exactly if I'm saying that right, but I'm striving to. Paul, would you like to say hi to our audience here before we get started?
Yeah, hi everybody. Pleasure to be here, Jason, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Well, I hope you are. And Paul had told me that, or you told me that you have a couple of these podcasts to do, and I absolutely love doing it. I learn something every time. I invited, a couple things. So I accidentally got in touch with Paul's LinkedIn group, got him as a connection. He produces some amazing content. I've learned some things, quite a few things actually. One thing that I learned from you, Paul, I don't know, I didn't tell you this before, but to showcase pictures of actual events, interactions, or outcomes with customers. And I did that the other day, and not views and likes aren't the purpose, right? But getting the information out is the purpose. And it really did well. And I was like, oh my, I'm going to start doing this. So I've already reached out to customers saying, hey, can I get a picture of when we did that? I thought it was really neat. And I like the visualization and the interactions that you seem to have with people. So I invited Paul on because he is an industry lean expert, and he is a consultant, full-time, owns his own business, and has a manufacturing background. And I love any opportunity that I can get to learn from different fields of work in lean. And so I'd like you, Paul, if you don't mind, to introduce yourself a little bit so that we can connect with you.
Yeah, so hi everybody. Paul Dunlop. My business name is Dunlop Consultants, as Jason said. I've been consulting and industry training for nearly 6 years now, predominantly with a manufacturing client base. So to Jason, the sort of pre-talk that I'm a lifelong learner, and I think as I go along, my learning grows, but I also learn an extreme amount from my clients. So I guess my journey was coming from the shop floor in manufacturing. I fell into that early in my career, and I've grown a passion for lean and lean thinking along the way. And I guess my way is to help support and share those things with others. And the more I can do that, the better.
Well, that's fantastic. So this podcast fits right into your core purpose there. So I appreciate that. So the reason I'm excited about this, just to give you a little bit of a background, Paul, actually, Paul Akres, you've probably heard of Paul Akres with 2 Second Lean. Lean people either love him or hate him. I won't even ask what your thoughts are, but, but I did an interview with him, and we were talking about concepts of lean and lean cultures. And I learned from him the concept of total participation. And my definition within lean construction is respect for people and resources. This is just my personal, but respect for people and resources, stable environments that will bring problems to the surface, and then continuous improvement. And I've added in there total participation, and then continuous improvement. That's just my little guide as it applies to construction. And so it's really opened my eyes that people with different perspectives in lean can really round us out in construction's journey on our lean journey. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about to talk to you about today. And so for anybody listening, the podcast title is Hearts and Minds. And I love that topic. And so we're going to get right into it. But first, there's 2 or 3 things that I like to do. One of them is talking about either what I or a podcast guest is excited about in life. So, Paul, would you take it away for us this episode?
I'm excited about lots of things. And it's funny that you touch on Paul Akres, because I had a conversation about Paul last night and his approach to lean. So I guess what I'm excited about is, people, I try and bring that passion and energy too lean. I have that myself, and I try and bring that to my clients. What I'm excited about is the future, the here and now and beyond, because I think the last 12 months for everybody has been extremely difficult. And I guess the way I look at things is very much looking at things from a point of view where there is a silver lining. I have to practice what I preach, and I have to find the positives in any situation, whether it's terrible or it's great. For me, it's been about probably the typical tradesman. So the construction thing, you do the work outside, but you never do the work on your own house. And for me, the excitement has been to be a business improvement person who's actually had to improve their business. So I'm really excited about the things that I've been able to do with the time. And you could probably make a choice on how you use that time and be effective and efficient with it. But I'm really excited about that because I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself, about my business, and I've also improved my skill set. So I'm ready to go and share that with the world. So that's what I'm excited about.
Well, I can be excited about it with you because I love your content and where you're headed. So, and I kudos to you. I don't know if it was hard to start your business from a financial perspective. I won't even ask because it's none of my business, but kudos to you. I know it's scary. I did it in January. So, but
Yeah.
things are going well. It sounds like you have lots of clients.
Yeah. It's, I think that there's always that scary moment, and that's a bit of the, oh shit, where's this all going to go? And I think everybody has that when you take the leap. But yeah, business is good. Business is obviously, it's different around the world, but we've been fortunate here in Australia. We've been a little bit insulated from a lot of the fallout. We've had our sets of challenges, no doubt. But yeah, business is strong, and particularly manufacturing in this country is really thriving, particularly in niche markets. Yeah.
Great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's really good news. You know, it is funny, and I don't know why, but construction continues in at least actually throughout all of the United States, but especially in Arizona because I'm here and I see it mostly. But construction just keeps every year increasing, and we have as big a need as ever for better, faster, more effective ways of doing things. And so that's great for us who are helping companies to take their next step. So I love that. So I had a thought, but I totally spaced it there for just a minute. Well, anyway, yeah. Are most of your clients on retainer, or do you do individual events, if you don't mind me asking?
Mainly on retainer.
Okay.
So typically projects with clients will last anywhere from 1 to 3 years.
Okay.
Sometimes it's short engagements that are project driven, but generally it's full scale cultural and process transformation, and that's what I like to do. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, best of luck to you. I'll be cheering you on from my end. So the other thing I like to talk about is every time I get feedback, to mention it, whether it's feedback for improvement. I actually got some feedback for improvement for the new book that we published at Elevate Construction on tact planning. And so I'll get deeper into that and have that ready for everybody next week. But here's the feedback. I've got a couple of these I need to get out over the next couple of days. Here's one. Jason, just finished listening to your first episode and the message you delivered was fantastic. Looking forward to another episode on the podcast. I looked you up and was surprised and delighted to see that you worked for DPR in the past. I've been working for DPR for 5 years now. Good stuff. Keep going. So, every time somebody gives me something, I make sure to shout it out on the airwaves here. So, thank you to all of those who provide feedback, and especially the feedback for improvement, because as we roll things out, and I'll throw you in here, Paul, although you're wiser than I am and more experienced, but we start businesses and we do marketing and we do all these things almost like a lean rollout so that we can get feedback for what the customer wants, right? And so we have to have that feedback to improve. Am I right, Paul?
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. You're in the hot seat now. So how long have you worked in this niche in lean manufacturing?
Oh, wow. sort of starting to show my age. So 20 something years.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
All right. How did you get started? I'm really curious about that.
Okay, so I had very humble beginnings. I live in regional Victoria in Australia. I live in a town called Ballarat, and I moved to this town with no plan moving forward, and I fell into a manufacturing job for a Japanese Japanese family business in regional Ballarat, Australia, making traditional Japanese dried noodles and the greenfield site. And I started work as a machine operator. And I guess just because you're Japanese doesn't necessarily make you a lean business, but I was introduced to concepts like 5S. And my journey started with basically that, an introduction to 5S, and me being me, went away and sort of with a curious mind and learned about this stuff. I went out and I think I bought Masaki Imai's Gemba Kaizen. It was the first lean book I ever got. And so read that cover to cover, and that sort of really blew my mind and started to apply some of these concepts into my workplace. So I had no guidance, no mentor, no training, just book read and got into it. And so I rose through the ranks of that company into management. So doing functional management as well as lean, and then spread my wings, and I've gone on to work for sort of some bigger global companies and bigger national companies over the next 10 years. And 6 years ago, I got into industry training and consulting. And I guess that's where my passion lay. I was in functional management positions for a long time, implementing lean, and really wanted to do lean full time. And yeah, it's just gone from there, which is, I'm very blessed to be in this position.
Well, you've partly explained my next question, which was how has your role changed over time? You know what? We'll go ahead. I'm going to adapt right now. Unless you want to answer that question, I'm going to adapt and ask you to answer that later on when we talk about your concept, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'd like to know, what is it? And I wanted to know this even before I was looking for questions for the podcast. What does a typical day in your life look like?
So a typical day, a typical working day.
Yeah.
So I'm a very disciplined person. So I do try to practice what I preach in every way in my life. Probably, like Paul Akres, as you mentioned, he promotes a lot of that in terms of his health and well-being and all those sorts of things. So 4:30 out of bed. I do mindfulness and breathing. I follow Wim Hof methods, so that works for me. I usually work out and then it's off to work. So I could be working 5 minutes down the road, or I could be working 4 hours away. So generally a bit of a car trip and some podcasts, and then in a client for a day. That can look very different depending on the client. Sometimes I'm doing training and education. Sometimes I'm on a shop floor. Sometimes I'm in a boardroom, depending on the need and where we're at with that particular client. Home to 3 kids and a wife, and doing all that stuff. I like cooking, or I get thrown into the cooking, so do that. And probably finish the day off with some reading. So I'm a very big reader, very big on continuing to educate and learn. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and probably these days don't read any lean books. I've given them away. It's probably reading a bit wider and broader these days.
Well, that's the, there's a weird moment there. Not a weird moment. It was a good moment. So Katie and I are addicted to the British Bake Show. And,
Yeah.
So as you were talking about my 3 kids, and I love to cook, and the accent, it's almost exactly like one of the little bios that they do on that show. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. I want to see you cook something. Like, can you take your phone with you? So I'm glad that you love to cook and you have 3 little ones, boys, girls.
2 boys, 1 girl. So what have we got? 8, 10, and 12 at the minute. So yeah, a handful.
8. So there's 4.
3. Sorry,
What's
8, 10, and 12.
Oh, 8. So it's not 8, 8. So 8, 10, and 12. Okay. All right. Well, that's great. It might surprise you. I've got 11, and my wife and I have 11 together, and they're in doing chores right now and getting ready for bed. So
It's a soccer team.
yeah, it's absolutely, yeah. I don't know how to play any sports, so I'm kind of at a disadvantage. But let me ask you one more before we get into your approach. By the way, for anybody listening, I really feel like we're going to get some good concepts here on Paul's approach to lean that we can use to assess in our own lean journey. One of the questions that I want to ask you before we get to that, though, is what is one of the most one of the accomplishments that you're most proud of? And being a humble guy like you are, that's probably difficult. So it could be your accomplishment, something that you've taught, a concept, an environment, a team, anything. But what is that one of the things you're most proud of or being a part of?
Maybe a couple of things, and maybe more general than specific. But certainly, I'm proud of being able to gear my career towards having my own business, doing something I love and really passionate about. It's very aligned with who I am as a person. It's very aligned with where my career's gone, and it's great to have that freedom to do that in my own way. So I'm very proud of being able to get to that point. Very lucky, and I appreciate that. The other point is probably for me, the achievement is there's always moments in businesses that I work with that there's a tipping point and there's a real change in that business and that organization and their culture. And the moments I live for is where people within that business, you'll see that there's almost a light comes on in their eyes and they start to beam. And I'll walk into businesses where people will literally rush up and grab me to show me the improvement that they've made. And they're proud of that improvement they've made. So for me, that is everything. That's quite emotional for me, but that's exactly why I do what I do. So for me to be able to do that for somebody else and for a team is, it's great.
It's pretty powerful. Those are paydays, aren't they? Yeah, it's almost undescribable.
Yeah,
How wonderful it is. Go ahead. Sorry.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we perhaps lose sight of why we're doing what we're doing, because it's not about dollars, it's about people.
100%. And that leads us right into the podcast. I would just a quick thought on that. I remembered what I was going to talk about. I'm reading High Performance Habits. Anyway, really neat book. I don't know if you've ever been around it, but there's a little bit different perspective on high performance coaching. I do coaching as well, and use personality profiles and assessments and things like that. And the premise of the book is, that's only going to get you so far. There's certain habits that will take you from who you are to who you want to be, and there's a little bit of common sense that has to go in with that. But I took the little test that they do, and I scored a 4.37, and they said, really successful companies, the average high performance indicator score is like a 4.76 or something. Now I know you have to, take all of this with a grain of salt, but I was like, okay, I need to take better care of my health, and I need to make more intimate connections with customers. And so you're right. When you start a business, it's like, you can't slide on any aspects of life. Everything has to be a complete, package. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And I love the concept that it's about people. There have been a couple of times, just like the other day, and I'll shut up here in a minute. But sometimes somebody will give me feedback and I'm like, oh, that hurts so much. Or, this creativity that we're always giving out there, sometimes somebody's not going to like it. And I have to always anchor back to the concept. Why did I start the business? To help people. Am I helping people? Yes. Am I giving? Yes. Are we changing things for the better? Yes. It wasn't about this little thing that I'm stressing about. So totally with you. So that takes us right into our topic of, some approaches in lean don't focus on people, don't focus on connection, don't focus on the hearts and minds of people. And those aren't as successful as they could be. And I'll say this one last thing, and I'd like you to explain to us your approach to lean. I remember this story. I can't remember what book it was in, but after 40 years, this man in his retirement was giving like his kind of, commencement end of retirement speech and said, for 40 years they've had the work of my hands when they could have had the work of my head and my heart for the same money, but they never asked. And that's always stood out to me. And so I'm super excited. So will you take us through your, without giving away any trade secrets that you don't want to give out, your approach to lean and how that focuses on people?
The secret is there are no secrets.
I love it.
And lean is simple, and lean should be simple. So I sort of joked with you before that, I just make it up as I go on. And in some respects, I do that. And that comes with, 20 odd years of expertise and experience. I think for me, and go back to Taiichi Ono, start from need. And really, you can't go past that as an approach, because although every single organization, I would say, has the same sets of issues, every organization is unique, and there'll be different scales of those pain points and difficulties and frustrations that they have. So although there's always a fundamental approach and fundamental tools that will be used, it is not a case of using tools for the sake of tools or having a cookie cutter approach. And so I think that's a very big conversation. It's a very common conversation that I have. I was in a client for the first day last week, and they were asking me, what did Toyota do and what did Bosch do? And my response is it doesn't matter what they do. It matters what you do, and that you develop an approach that works for you and your culture and your people and your clients and customers. So I think sometimes that's where we get lost, both from the consulting world, and depending on where the consultant has come from, they'll have a very, clearly defined approach. And I think it's very important to have an open mind and to, always talk about, the approach of empathy and non-judgment and curiosity when we go into these things, is that we're just going to take it as it comes. Yes, there's fundamentals around creating a visual workplace. There's fundamentals around respect for people and engaging people. There's, we have to have structure. We have to have discipline in the environment. We're going to use tools like 5S. Like you, I'm obsessed with high performance, and I'm very driven from that point of view. And that high performance isn't necessarily about pushing people. It's about optimizing people and optimal performance. I've just read Rich Davini's attributes book, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL commander, and talks about the skills versus attributes scenario. So always looking for the attitudes and the behavior. We can always give people and train people the skills that they need. So I think, my approach again is to make things very simple and relatable. Early on in the piece, my job is to expose. So lean, I had a conversation last night around, nobody wants to be told their baby's ugly. And sometimes...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That just is what it is. And let's get that out of the way. And it's also, a lot of my work is around leadership coaching. And it's, I guess, that moment where I have to say, what's happening in your business or your organization is a reflection of you. You've either, you've created that, or you've allowed this to happen. And that is what it is. There's no judgment in any of that. But now we can see it for what it is. Let's make it better.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing I want to touch on is that lean is never about perfection. We're setting a true north, and we need that. However, I think often we can get perfection drives probably inertia, and it also drives a lot of frustration, anxiety when we're chasing something that is not possible, or perhaps is not possible at this moment. So I'm interested in better. Okay, again, that Paul Akres philosophy, I think, really is important. That 2 second, can you just make it a little bit better today?
Okay.
Yes, that's possible. That's achievable. And that's the only way that momentum can start, by just doing those little things. And change in organizations is not quantum leaps. It is granular. It is iterative. There are going to be pitfalls along the way. There's going to be backward steps. It's going to be difficult and hard, like anything in life. But it's staying that course and being patient through that process, and it picks up momentum. And like I said, at some point, and it's different for everyone, there's a tipping point and things start to get easier and feel easier and see real change and evidence of that on a daily basis.
When you get, and what I'm hearing you say at the beginning is getting people to see.
Yeah.
We know those books that are titled Learning to See. There's a lot about that. So it sounds like exposing, I can't remember the phrase you said. The only trouble with listening to somebody intently is you forget what you're going to say. But you said exposing those problems or opportunities, whatever we want to call them. When you deal with professionals and they can see it, I don't know how to word this question. Well, let me say it like this. In construction, most of what I do is to help people to perform at a high level outside of what they might normally be comfortable doing, their comfort zone. I know that's cliche, but I don't know in your schools what happens, but in schools in the United States, it's, sit down, shut up, don't pay too much attention to this, go to your next class, fit in, join the social group. We have been programmed to not speak up. We've been programmed to not see problems. We've been programmed, right? And so helping people to have fun with or be incentivized to be in the learning zone is what I spend most of my time doing. I'm hearing you probably do the same thing, but you start with, here's the need, so you get leverage against it, right? Do you find quite a bit of success with them taking that next step once they see the problems themselves, once they see the reality themselves? Or is there another step that you have to implement that helps them to self-motivate?
So that's a really good question. For me, it's important to, and our schools are no different, our workplaces are no different, unfortunately.
Okay.
And when I talk about the common problems that organizations have is that I could, before I set foot in any organization, I'd say, I know what your top 10 issues are, but before I know anything about who you are or what you do, and I definitely know what your top 3 are. And the top 3 issues will always be around communication. So it's not the right communication. It's not frequent enough. It's not delivered in the right way. And there's perception and reality in all of that. They'll talk about, we've told them 100 times and they never listen. They never do anything. And they'll talk about performance isn't managed. So both sides of the equation with performance in terms of acknowledgement and reward, but also managing poor performance, poor behavior.
Okay.
So top 3 every time.
So the first one was communication, performance management. What was the third one?
And voice. We've told them 100 times and they'll never listen.
Yeah. I keep getting the counts wrong. First, I thought you had 4 kids, and then I was like, anyway. So that's really interesting. And and then to your point, that if I'm right, the customer that you're serving will have different versions of those issues and specific solutions that they can implement with your consulting, right? So it's not always like plug and play, but the problems are almost always similar from organization. That's really interesting. I bet people would pay right now to know what the whole top 10 are, but those top 3 were amazing. So problems with communication, performance management, and listening, meaning people having their voice heard. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And so, there's always a right grin on a senior leader or a business owner's face when I say those things, because they know it's right and they know that's what's going on. So probably back to your question, if I got it right, there's always an education piece. So it's really important for me, and particularly for people at the front line, that they understand this stuff. And that's where the simplicity comes in, because again, some of my comrades in the consulting world like to use the Japanese words and like to make something that is relatively simple far too complex and complicated, and it's not accessible for the people who need it most.
Yeah.
And I really, through my LinkedIn and in my posts, I really try and rally hard against that. And that this is simple. The pictures that I show are, you can do this. Anyone can do this. If I can do this, anyone can do this.
Yeah.
And that gets the conversation going. And again, what I'm interested in is that exposure starting the conversation. There can be other environmental factors then beyond that exposure. So there might be fear in the environment. There might not be supportive leadership. There's obviously a lot of conditioning. Maybe it's industry specific. So my job also to be able to get the things to happen is to uncover and start to work on those things. And it's also people seeing real benefit from that activity. And I try and, I'm not interested in turning up in my suit and tie and sitting in the boardroom. I'll get out in the shop floor and get my hands dirty and be there beside them, particularly in the early stages if we're doing 5S. I mean, 5S is a great Trojan horse in many respects, just to show something happening and a visible manifestation of what lean starts to look like. And everybody goes, yeah, that's great, and it looks better and it's easier and I've got what I need to do my job. And wow, what else can we do? And so again, it's just opening people's eyes to that, seeing the possibilities, seeing the fact that they can change something in their workplace and they have permission and ownership to do that. That's really powerful. It might be, as an example, there's that chair on the floor there that I have to walk around every time to get to where I need to. I'm like, well, just move the chair. And they're like, well, what, I can do that? I'm like, yeah, just do that. That makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
And there's just examples of that stuff over and over again, or it might be assumptions in the environment, whatever. And it's just like, let's just throw it all up in the air and go for it. But we have to sort of almost set people free to be able to do that.
I love that. And that's where the communication, listening, and performance management and having an organization that's willing to create those safe environments comes in, right? I love that. And yeah, sometimes I used to be a little bit guilty with the tools aspect of lean and consulting a little bit because I've run these large, $100, $200 million projects and implemented TACT, Last Planner, Scrum, visual workplaces, continuous improvement, 3S'ing, all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, just do this. And then it didn't work. And I used to feel like some of the simulations that consultants did was just a little bit gimmicky. And I've learned to repent of that, because if you can use some of these things, whether it's real life, like you said, being on the shop floor, or doing a simulation of some sort, or making something visual and getting them to see it, if they own it, I agree with you, it just goes a lot farther. And so I am finding myself drifting towards, let's not give you 30 things. Let's go make a big difference on a couple of things and make sure you get it first. So very wise counsel and advice. And that goes for everyone. You don't have to be a consultant. That's leadership at every level, right? Make progress, get leverage against the things that are bugging us now, or however we want to say it, in incremental steps together. I love that.
Yeah, that's it. I think there's another quote from Toyota is that, improvement is just the combination of the accumulation of many small steps, like I said before, and that's all it ever is, and there's no need to overcomplicate it. And it probably touches on, companies' ability to set a strategic direction. Is that we're going into our end of financial year cycle now, so people are starting to plan and strategize for the next year. And often if we have a strategy, it's not very good, because it's generally really overcomplicated. It's very long and lengthy and wordy, and it looks great and we all feel good when we set it, but at the end of the cycle, then it just doesn't deliver and it gets diluted. So my advice is around clarity and simplicity. So keep those things very short, sharp, and focused and relatable, And that way you're much better chance of success to be able to break that down and to get that happening at the front lines of the business where the value is added.
Yeah. Did you say short, sharp, and focused? I like that. Can I go ahead and trademark that in the United States? Would you? Do you?
Go for it.
Short, sharp, and focused.
Open source.
I love that. Well, so I feel like in listening to you, I have a method, or I have a way where, here's what I think. Let me just say two things to prove that I was listening, that this is making a difference. Okay. So number one, I think personally, and a lot of other folks judge engagements by, was it interesting, new, and like, ooh, wonderful? Or would I, Jason Schroeder, be interested in this? And that's not what I'm hearing right now. That's not the measurement. The measurement is, with the team that we're building, with the organization together, did we just make an incremental step forward towards a safer, more cohesive, higher functioning, better communicative environment together? And if we accomplish that and it was practical, relevant, and impactful, we can leave feeling like we've made a difference. And in fact, when we go in there to entertain, and we're like, ooh, all this new shiny stuff, and we don't take the time to let it stick, then we're actually hurting the situation, probably, almost, right? And I love your focus on connection to people. And so I'd like to ask you let me look at my outline. One last major question. And then I'd like to close out with, what is the current condition that isn't good enough for you and me and the people that are listening to this podcast? What is the condition? I like to say that we're fighting against, because I like war analogies, but where is the gap? And then what would you challenge our listeners to do? But first, the title of this podcast was Hearts and Minds. And I'd like to see if we can get a moment around that. You've discussed your approach. When do you see the connection and that light bulb coming on really happening, to where you leave? Maybe you don't say it in your mind, maybe you don't say it out loud, but where you say, yes, we had a connection there to someone's heart and someone's mind today. What does that look like, feel like? What do you do? Anything around there, so we can get a little closer to touching it and seeing it?
Another great question, Jason. Just thinking about how I answer that. So there's probably two components to that. Is that we need, so I can walk out into the front lines of any business and I can go, hey guys, tell me what's going on. And they go, bleh, and tell me everything that's going on. Fix what bugs you. What are the frustrations? What are the things that make your day-to-day working life difficult? They'll tell me. They'll give it all to me. My, I guess, challenge is then to have that conversation with leadership, and for leaders to take that feedback in the right way as constructive feedback, and then to think about how they action that and how they deal with it. And that's not always an easy conversation at any level of leadership, again, whether it's a business owner or a GM, whoever I'm dealing with. So my challenge and what good looks like is genuinely, again, where we have that safe environment where people genuinely have a voice and have ownership, and that voice is heard, but also the voice and the conversation happens and is stimulated from leaders asking good questions, and questions based in empathy and want to make that situation better and support those people.
Okay.
That's probably my best answer to that question, is that we have that kind of loop almost with supportive servant leadership. Yeah.
Sorry, I just got excited. Because it's hard to put it into words, but if you're saying something and people follow it because they know that it's what they're supposed to do, versus a leader that actually cares about his people are asking those questions because they're getting it, right? And not only are they getting it, but now the employees are like, okay, this is real because my direct supervisor actually cares. Yeah, I can kind of put myself in that moment. That's pretty neat. When you get up out of bed? I like World War II stories. I don't like that World War II happened, but I like the kind of the heroics and some of the stories and leadership and stuff like that. So I always like get up thinking, our construction projects are attempting to kill our people. Like literally everything's so dangerous. So we're fighting against waste and variation. That's kind of my little thing. What motivates you? What is the normal thing that you see that you're fighting against or working against, or the gap that you're attempting to close? What's the current condition that you see? And then the last question, before you give us kind of how people can reach out to you, is what would be, so you do consulting for anyone, but manufacturing, large businesses, on the board of directors, expand that to construction in the United States. What would be the challenges? So current condition and challenges, please.
Um, so current condition is probably paraphrasing a lot of the things that I've already spoken about. But current condition for me is about removing organizations and the hierarchies that exist to support the people at the front lines.
Oh, wow.
And end of story. And they're the people that are generating revenue for the business. They're the people that are servicing our customers. Everything else exists to support that function. And we forget that. We do. We really do forget that. And there it is. And for me, the main game is about engaging with those people to simply remove their impediments to doing their job and to be able to do it well. And those are those day-to-day frustrations, those wasting out process. So for me, I always talk about people get out of bed in the morning and they come to work with the best intentions, and they want to take pride in their work, and they want to do a good job. They don't come to work to do a bad job or to be lazy, but it is the nature of the process or the culture or the leadership that then starts to impede their ability to do those things.
Yeah.
And again, that is a global problem. It's a human problem, and lean is the antidote to that situation.
If you took 3 weeks to prepare a script, you couldn't have done a better job answering that question. That was wonderful. So then what's our challenge? What would you challenge us in construction to consider on our journey?
I think again, talking about discomfort is to probably think differently.
Okay.
And to let go of everything we think we know, even about our industry, and to really let go. Again, the key for leaders is to let go. Let go of the power. let go of the assumptions. Let go of perhaps their conditioning and their previous training. That's the key.
Okay.
It's freedom in many respects.
That's wonderful. This has been such a great podcast. I always come into them thinking that it's going to be good, but I honestly didn't think it would be this good. And that says a lot about you and your capabilities. So where can people get in touch with you if in fact you want them to, and your content that you're giving out?
No, so LinkedIn's probably the first port of call. So happy to engage with anybody. I do already. Being here in Australia, sort of in the back door of the world somewhat, but engage already with people all around the world, have fantastic conversations. So check me out there. Also have my website, so Dunlop Consultants. You'll find that somewhere, and
Yeah. And I'm not wanting to overwhelm you with. I'm sure it wouldn't bother you anyway, but I tested this because he had recommended a number of books, and I asked him for a book list, and he got it right back to me. So really great conversation. So some direct feedback for you, if that's okay, is like you're really approachable, very knowledgeable. I love the humble attitude with which you go about this and your concern and care for people. And I could picture myself being one of your clients and paying for you to, if I owned a large business where it would be applicable, I could just, it's easy to imagine working with good people like yourself. And so just really appreciate what you're doing and for coming on the podcast today. And for anybody who's listening, I hope you enjoyed it. And then we have a little tradition on the podcast. I always finish with "On we go." That kind of ties into your message that we're striving for better. And one thing that I really got that I liked is that some people want, okay, we have a 3-day engagement, or we have a retainer, or they just received training. Where is it? Change needs to happen now. These are triggers, right? When I went to a Tony Robbins training, or learned lean, or went to a business class, or did a mastermind, those were just the gate. Somebody opened the gate, and then I had like a decade-long journey, right? Any lean interaction is your gate, right? And I just really got that from listening to you. I didn't want to cut you off if you want to say something. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely spot on. And I think the work takes time, and it takes patience, and a lot of that work happens in here. It's the inner work, because I think a lot of the change has to, like any change again in life, it has to come from within to then manifest itself outside. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
I love it. And so, but again, that goes back to my podcast with Paul Akres. We came up with this little saying, "Lean heaven," that really heaven wouldn't be all it could be if it wasn't for continuous improvement, because sitting on a cloud ain't too much fun if we're not able to continually 5S and improve things, right? So lean heaven, baby, right there. So if you would say it with me on the count of 3, on we go. You ready? 1, 2, 3. On we go.
On we go.
All right. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.